Welcome to the Western New York Athletics High School Football Weekly Show with Frank Wolf and Dick Gallagher, brought to you by Scroy Financial in West Seneca, Danny's Restaurant with 2 locations, 3715 Genesee Street in Cheektowaga and in Orchard Park on Abbott Road near the stadium, and G&G Fitness at 7350 Transit Road near Main Street in Amherst. Check them out on the web at livefit.com.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of High School Football Weekly. I am Frank Wolf from WNY Athletics, and I'm joined by Dick Gallagher from WGRZ High School Sports. And we're just getting into the postseason here. If you're from Section 6, Monsignor Martin, you got another couple of weeks to go before we get into playoffs for the private schools. But, Dick, Week 7 came and went. It was rivalry week. We saw a lot of good games, definitely some upsets. But before we get into those games and start talking about some of the performances, why don't we just mention our sponsors for today. Today's sponsors are G&G Fitness, livefit.com, Westher Family of Dealerships, westherd.com, Scroy Financial of West Seneca, Plan, Protect, Invest, and UBMD Orthopedics. Thank you very much for your sponsorships. They are the ones that are helping us out with putting this show together. Of course, you know, Josh Pullman does all the work. We just do the talking, but he's really the one doing all the work with the mixing and the editing. And
he's a magician.
Yes, he is. And Karen Edwards, who does all of our graphics design, give a shout out to him. He's just a student at Looport. He does a very good job for us, so thank you to those guys for helping us with this show. But, Dick, Week 7, my Blue Devils were upset by Kenmore East this past Saturday, so now I got to listen to Francis Beck for a year, a proud Bulldog alumni. You know, they took it to us. They beat us fair and square. I believe you were at that game. What are your thoughts on Ken West falling to their crosstown rival?
Yeah, what I couldn't understand was Kenmore West had senior day, and they also acknowledged the cheerleaders, and they had the parents. And it took about a good hour to go through the whole process. They weren't warming up. Ken East was over there warming up for an hour at least, you know, run the plays, etc. When they started the game, I think it was number 4, ran back the kickoff like 40 yards. Then if you looked at the defense for Kenmore West, particularly in the first period, it was like non-existent. So then, when you know, it was almost like it was meant to happen, meant to be. And I don't know whether they warmed up in the morning or whatever, but they didn't think, and Zach threw a 50-yard touchdown pass, and I thought that they were going to be on a roll, but it was nice to see Pat Beltry and the teams get the win.
The best video from that game was after the game when his son Pat, who's in a wheelchair, who does some work for WNY Athletics every now and again, he's one of my favorites out there, watching them embrace each other after the game. That's their first win against Kenmore West since Pat took over for Coach Shimura. In fact, it was Coach Shimura's final game that he also upset Kenmore West 5 years ago. And Kenmore East was really bad that year, and Kenmore West was on their way to Orchard Park. But Kenmore East beat Kenmore West that day. They did it again last Saturday, so I don't know if that's an omen, maybe a good omen for Kenmore West, getting that loss out of the way and retooling, and hopefully knows. Who knows? Maybe they make a run towards the stadium again. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But I was very, very happy for those guys at Kenmore East, especially those seniors that, you know, played their hearts out and really, really focused this week. And it's been a long season for them, coming in at 0-6 to finally get that first win. I know a number of those seniors. I had coached some of those guys myself in different sports. Dalton Gahn, who had a pretty good game defensively for the Bulldogs. Very happy to hear his number called on the broadcast, and of course Dom Ferguson, another kid who's had a pretty good year, and he was a Connolly Cup top performer that past week, along with others. So good for those guys. The other game was TNT Friday night, and Joe Kelly, they erase an 18-year winning streak for the Lumberjacks. Tonawanda at home, they get it done. Big win for them. Not just a win, but a shutout. They shut out North Tonawanda. It was a 23-0.
And Jason Fraser, you know, was a stud on both sides, and he's, you know, a tremendous leader. But you look at Joe Kelly, and when he started out the season, I think they lost the first few games. They come back, they make the playoffs, and never know what happens. You got to be able to be at the dance to be able to play for the championship, and at least not just a win over the Lumberjacks, but just being able to get ready for the game.
So that was now the the Warriors now have 2 straight wins heading into the playoffs, and that's definitely a positive. They'll be taking on Albion Friday night, and we'll go through those playoff matchups in just a little bit. And the other game, Lancaster, Depew, 100 years of those 2 programs. I believe they played their 93rd game, and it was a big win for Lancaster, which we all expected, but still a game that gets the communities together, and that's just a great atmosphere. And one of these years I will make it to that game. Fredonia Dunkirk, we got to talk about this Dalton Gardner kid who had 5 touchdowns, almost 400 yards all-purpose, but his 5 touchdowns, the shortest one was 55. So what an impressive game for Dalton Gardner. I believe he was banged up and missed some weeks, so it was nice to see him get back on the field. Even though Fredonia won't be going to the playoffs, it's nice to see that they were able to get some contributions from a kid who missed some of the season because of injuries.
When you take a look at that, if you look at the stats for the Hillbillies, the running back, that led at like 300, 350. And then you just looked and says, where was Gardner? Then you take a look at that, he counted for 5 touchdowns, 4 rushing, 70 yards or more, and then on the receiving end of our touchdown. What a fantastic way. And unfortunate thing is they didn't make the playoffs because they have one of the best players in Jake Skinner, strong two-way player, but definitely a Division I, 2 player for defense.
Well, we're going to talk about the playoff matchups. We're going to get into the Monsignor Martin. We'll go through that and a whole bunch of other things planned for the show today. But we'll be back after a word from our sponsors.
Hey, Josh Allen.
Hey, thanks for coming by.
Big fan.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all about that teamwork.
Yeah, that's West Her. Get the right people, working together, making connections. In fact, show me what you got. I'm going long.
Really?
Made me work for it, but anything worth doing.
Listen, I know you're good at this TV deal, but maybe you should try the football thing.
Here's a look back at the Week 7 highlights, courtesy of Tom Repicci from Prepstar. Here's a look at the Week 7 Connolly Cup Top Performers, the Trench Trophy nominees, and the Cross Training Athletics Athletes of the Week. Here are the Week 7 Power Rankings, courtesy of me. So yell at me, tweet at me, whatever you want. I've heard it before. All right, large schools. Number 10, Bennett. Number 9, Clarence. Number 8, McKinley. Number 7, Lancaster. Number 6, Orchard Park. Number 5, Jamestown. Number 4, South Park. Number 3, Canisius. Number 2, St. Joe's. And number 1, St. Francis. For the small schools, my power rankings are number 10, Iroquois, number 9, CSP, number 8, Pioneer, number 7, Portville, number 6, Albion, number 5, Wilson, number 4, Franklinville, Ellicottville, number 3, Cheektowaga, number 2, Western New York Maritime Health Sciences, and number 1, Southwestern. This week, the WNY Athletics broadcast team will be out at Friday night. We'll be in Athol Springs doing a broadcast of the Canisius High School football team taking on St. Francis out at Athol Springs. That's a game that will be seen on the NFHS network. It will be live streamed. We will also be at Clarence for the AA football game. Clarence hosting Lancaster. Mark Johnson will be on the call along with John Simon. Stay tuned at 9:30 p.m. Friday night for the Friday night final drive. Francis Beck will have highlights and interviews from coaches from Week 8, the first week of the playoffs. On Saturday, we start off at Kenmore West at 2 o'clock as they host Grand Island. And then at 4 o'clock, we'll be out at All High Stadium. Niagara Falls takes on Bennett. Those will be on Mixler.com/WNY Athletics.
We have hundreds of square feet of physical therapy in multiple locations. And with the physical therapy, we also have a strength and conditioning bridge program that can help athletes kind of specifically fine-tune their abilities in getting them back to specific sports. For people who are in tune to working with athletes of all different levels, from high school all the way up to the professional teams we take care of. This is a service that's offered through the UB Well program.
Welcome back to WNYathletics.com. High School Football Weekly. I'm Frank Wolf with Dick Gallagher. We're going to roll right into the Monsignor Martins. We're going to talk a little bit about their scenarios. The Monsignor Martin portion of today's show is sponsored by A-Turf. Visit aturf.com. You like those fields out at Williamsville East and out in Wilson? Guess who did them? A-Turf. Call my buddy Rick at A-Turf today to have your stadium upgraded. You like A-Turf?
That's good. I like it.
You do?
Sure, when you take a look at taxpayers paid $23 million to renovate all of the athletic facilities in Williamsville, and they did a fantastic job, and the kids are being able to play games now on turf rather than having them canceled on grass. So,
and you can get a good look at these turf and the job that they did. Williamsville North is hosting the Field Hockey State Championships for the second straight year, and they've got games on both fields, and it's an awesome complex. I was actually at Williamsville North on Monday talking to Coach Mamalotti, trying to see how they're getting prepared for South Park. We'll talk a little bit about that Class A bracket just a little bit. But why don't we roll into Monsignor Martin this past week? It was a little unbalanced. A lot of 3 David versus Goliath matchups you had. St. Joe's taking on O'Hara. Canisius had St. Mary's of Lancaster, and then Timon was taking on St. Francis. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
I don't have that right.
But
St. Mary's was at St. Francis. Either way.
You said it was a little one-sided. To me, it was
The understatement of the year, right?
The understatement of the year was a lot one-sided. What I don't understand is that the Monsignor Martin has a rule where the teams in B have to play 2 teams from A during the season. When you take a look at A, the 3 big ones. Take a look at the B, you got, Timon, St. Mary's, and O'Hara. Going into it, the 3 large schools were all home teams. They wound up scoring 135 points, shutting out the 3 teams. To me, something needs to be done with that. I think all of the winning teams played their starters only in the first half, which was good sportsmanship. But I think when you take a look at it, why have that rule? Why not let the 3 small schools get games with Class C, Class D teams in the section, and then let the big schools do whatever they need to do as far as scheduling games? It's an accident waiting to happen. You look at O'Hara. O'Hara had 17 players in that ready for that game, and something needs to be done. Now, when you take a look at the 3A schools, they're very competitive. In your top 10 in the large schools, they take the first 3 spots, right?
In mine, anyways.
In your top 10, right. And this week, when you take a look at Canisius and St. Francis, that'll be the game of the week, even though there's playoffs going, and that place will be packed. But I think that it'll be interesting because right now, if St. Francis wins that game, they're going to be in the driver's seat. They'll get a bye for the playoffs, have to play in the championship game. If Canisius wins, then that throws everything into the final couple of weeks.
A few of the guys for Canisius I want to mention. Tyler Baker had a phenomenal game last week as expected and limited. He didn't play the whole game, obviously, but he's got 1,700 yards, almost 1,700 between passing and rushing. He's leading their team in rushing. He's 12 touchdowns thrown, 7 picks, but he's got 9 touchdown runs as well. He's having a much better year than maybe I wanted to give him credit for at the beginning of the year, because heading into that first week, we didn't even know he was going to be the starter. There were 2 other guys there battling out for that top position. He won it. They didn't necessarily announce it till just a few days before, so I didn't know what kind of season he was going to have. But you got to be impressed with how he's played this year. Nick McMillan hasn't been talked about a lot this year, if at all, and he's having a great year for Canisius on the receiving end. Leads them in receiving yards. Expect to hear his name a lot. It's unfortunate that they play so many teams from out of state. They play Euclid, Ohio. They play Cathedral Prep. Now that would get us excited because we love good football games. So we may go, but not everyone's going to go watch them play Cathedral Prep and, understand how tough Cathedral Prep really is. So if a kid doesn't throw for 350 yards versus them, it's not like you're playing O'Hara. You're playing one of the top teams in Pennsylvania here.
Right, and I think one of the things, too, is one of the best linemen in the area is a Crusader, and Donovan Cornelius. I think he was a transfer from Grand Island a few years ago, but he's outstanding, and I think he's a major competitor for the Trench Trophy.
I agree. And then C.J. Ozelins. I think that kid is a stud, and I believe he's heading to Buff State, but he might be able to play even at a higher level. I'm very impressed with how he plays the game, how he approaches the game. He's a real leader. I like that kid a lot, and I hope that he's considered for some postseason awards. Whoever happens to run these postseason awards, I hope he's considered. No pressure.
I'm just one of several that are involved in that. But CJ also was outstanding at St. Mary's for a couple of years. Then he transferred to Canisius. Last year he was hurt for several games, so he wasn't able to really do what he's capable of doing. This year he's lighting it up, and as a defender, he's tough.
So, I mean, Canisius played Euclid, they played McDowell and St. Joe's Cathedral Prep, that Erie High School team, which is not anywhere near as good as they were last year, but still, you schedule that game because you expect them to be as good as McDowell, or in the same, class of a Cathedral Prep. You would hope, anyways. Not the case this year, as St. Francis and Joe's and Canisius rolled over that team, but still, they have a ridiculously tough schedule here, and that's why I have them ranked ahead of the Orchard Parks and the South Parks and the Lancaster. I do think they are that much better than those teams. They do have the depth, they do have the line play, and that's where games are won and lost, at the line. And you have a hard time convincing me that South Park or Orchard Park, Lancaster, Clarence, those teams have as good a line as any of those three teams that I have ranked ahead of them. And I believe that's where the games won or lost. The skilled positions, it's secondary. If you can't get pressure, if you get pressure on the quarterback all day, and he's being forced out of pocket and forced to run, how are you going to find those receivers? So,
when you got Baker and you got Ritz playing Friday, they're going to light it up, no matter how strong the defenses are, because they just are outstanding. And one's a sophomore, the other's a junior. And then on St. Joe's, you have Colin Wither, who's outstanding, has excellent stats, an outstanding student athlete. So the three of the top quarterbacks are in the three big schools for League A for Monsignor Martin.
I know St. Joe's buried O'Hara, but the one play that's sticking out at me, and I got to see the film, is the Sam Torrey, the lineman from O'Hara. If you can get on Huddle or Twitter, look for this Sam Torrey. He picks up a blitz and absolutely buries this kid. I don't know who. I couldn't see the number, but it was the one play that I'm going to remember from that game is Sam Torrey. He's number 57 for O'Hara. He's not getting the attention because O'Hara isn't playing every week. They've had to take weeks off. I believe they're off again this week. The other team they were supposed to play canceled on him, so another game that this kid will not have film, and he's just a junior, but keep your eyes on Sam Torrey. He is an excellent lineman on both ends of the football, so hopefully O'Hara has a season next year and he gets a chance to play. If not, I encourage that kid to go back or go somewhere else.
One of the things that the Diocese of of Buffalo should be doing is giving capital money to schools like Cardinal O'Hara to renovate their facilities, particularly the football field, in other sporting areas. But they choose to not do that. There's some rule where they're not able to, and to me it's ridiculous. If I'm given on Sundays, a percentage of my money should be going toward Cardinal O'Hara to develop their complex.
Yeah, they stopped giving them money, was it 2 years ago? Timon and O'Hara were two schools for sure that they stopped giving money to, and I think that definitely hurt athletics at those two schools at least, and all the other ones that aren't getting money from Catholic Charities or wherever the money was coming from. Who's ever in charge of it, they hope maybe they can write them a check this week on the account of us. We hope so anyways. But that's going to do it for the Monsignor Martin section. Good luck to those teams this week. We will be at that Canisius St. Francis game. There will not be a better game in Western New York than that one on Friday night. I guarantee you that.
Can't agree with you more.
We'll be back after a word from our sponsors.
We didn't get here by accident. It starts with a plan to protect your future, to invest in your future. It started with Scroy Financial. Plan, protect, invest. Scroy Financial.
We needed a plan to protect what matters most. By investing in our future, that all started with Scroy Financial. Plan, protect, invest. Scroy Financial.
Welcome back to High School Football Weekly. We are getting into the Class AA discussion now, and this portion of the program will be sponsored by Logistics Plus of Buffalo, New York. They move all your truckload transportation, LTL, warehousing, logistics. They got it all over there. Logistics Plus of Buffalo, 716-877-9653. Getting into the Class AA talk, Dick, Jamestown won a big game last Friday night over Orchard Park. They secured that home field advantage throughout the playoffs, so Strider Field is going to be electric on Friday nights. If they can win their first game against Frontier, the 8th seed, they're going to have, looks like Lancaster or Clarence come in. But you have to go through Jamestown down at Strider as opposed to going through Lancaster. And I think that's a nice feather in the cap, so to speak, for Jamestown. A little peace of mind that they don't have to worry about transportation now. They don't have to worry about getting buses and heading up to anywhere. They can just stay right at home. And that's a good thing for them. It's not necessarily a good thing for Clarence and Lancaster and Frontier. But let's talk about that Jamestown Orchard Park game real quick. It was pretty exciting. Orchard Park, I thought, could have won that game had they had a kicker. Their number 8 was out, Hollander.
Tom Hollander, who actually was 3 for 3 and point after touchdowns against Lancaster, and they, Orchard Park won that game.
Yeah, there was a couple of trips into the red zone for Orchard Park, and they ended up having to go for it 4th and short, and both times Jamestown defense came up, both times. But you got to think, would Orchard Park be kicking in those situations? Absolutely, with a guy like Hollander, and unfortunately, because they weren't, they had to kind of change things up a little bit, and it gave Jamestown hope and momentum, and that's really all they needed. And Trey Drake, I believe that's his name, the quarterback freshman, exceptional talent. And then, Butera, Van Sickle, all quality athletes there in Jamestown. They're better than what we thought they were going to be at this point because they're awful young. They've got 4 underclassmen on the offensive line. Jamestown's for real. They're the real deal. And yes, they got that double overtime loss to Bennett early in the season, but they're 6-1, and they've got home field advantage, the share of the Class AA division title. They're just as good as anyone else in AA.
And I think they're going to dominate Frontier, and they could maybe not have their starters playing in the fourth quarter. But I think the Red Raiders won a state championship, I think it was 2015, and they have an outstanding coaching staff. They have excellent talent, a huge history of success. If you look at it, Orchard Park's won the most sectional championships with 14. Jamestown has won 11, so they're 1-2 in that. And then if you look at Orchard Park participating in championship games, they lead 22 to the next, that I think was with 14 or 15. So they've dominated in the last few decades.
Yeah, and it should be noted that Orchard Park also played without Mike Pataki. They kept him out this week. They may keep him out this week against Touch Tech. We'll have to wait and see on that. I think that was a smart move by Orchard Park doing that, and they almost won that game without him. They beat Lancaster without Pataki. They almost won this game without him. So Orchard Park's still awfully tough, and they may have the better. They definitely have the bigger offensive line. I don't know if they have the better, but they may. But they definitely have the bigger. No one on that line is under 250. I mean, that's a sizable line in Orchard Park. Good luck pushing them around. Clarence Lancaster. They're going to go at it for the second time this year. Of course, Clarence won in double overtime. Last time they played, Lancaster went for it. They went for the 2 points. Was that double overtime?
That was double overtime.
Okay.
That was the first game of the season. And if you take a look at Clarence, Paul Bergio has done an outstanding job with the coaching staff as well as with the players. They've got 2 really outstanding running backs in Zach Norton and Cole Harris. It's going to come down to who wins the game in the trenches, who avoids the penalties, and who wins the battle of the turnovers. But when you take a look at it, at one point, Lancaster's lost 2 games, each by a point, and Jason Menzel is a tough out. He's an outstanding quarterback. And the running game for Lancaster is not the same that it's been the last few years. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But I wouldn't be surprised if that went just like the last game. That this week it goes into overtime too.
I had a chance to catch up with Coach Paul Bergio of Clarence and Eric Rupp of Lancaster. Here's a little bit of what they had to say heading into this Week 8 playoff game. Frank Wolf, WNY Athletics. I'm here with the Class AA 4 and 5 matchup. The head coaches, Eric Rupp from Lancaster in the 5 seed and the number 4 seed Clarence Red Devils, Coach Paul Bergio. Coach Paul Bergio, you guys have a home game. You've got the defending Section 6 champion. They've been there 3 straight years. You guys have that big win earlier in the season in overtime. Just talk about where Clarence is right now. I know Norton's back, running the ball very well, but there's more to your team than just Zach Norton.
Yeah, for sure. We've been beat up for a little bit in the season, and we're finally healthy. And Zach is for sure a kid that, makes our engine run. But, there's a lot more than just Zach. Our offensive line is playing great football. And defensively, we're playing at our best so far this season at this point. The bottom line is Lancaster's one of the best programs you're ever going to play against. They're top-notch coaching staff. Right now, we're just going to worry about what we do best and prepare that way because we know they're going to bring their best. We will look at some film, obviously, and prepare for what we think we can do this week and put the best package together that we think will succeed. But right now, it's just worry about what we do best and focus on that.
And Coach Eric Rupp, you guys got another shot at Clarence. Unfamiliar territory for you, having to play your playoffs on the road. Just talk about the mindset of the Legends right now.
Yeah, I think we're in a good spot. Certainly, we have 2 losses by 1 point each, so coulda, woulda, shoulda. But the important thing is we're in the playoffs, and it's a new season. And, it should be very exciting. I think there's 5 teams that have a legitimate shot at winning a sectional championship this year, and we'll see what happens.
A little different. We noticed that you're not on the sidelines. You're now up on the catwalk up there. Just talk about coaching from where the cameras are.
Yeah, it's just vantage point for me. Calling the offense, I like to be up top. I can see the whole field. We can go faster on offense. And I have some great assistant coaches, and Dave Mansell and Brian Wild, who can handle everything on the field for us. So just more of a comfort thing for me, and we'll see how it goes. Certainly we go back to the Week 3 tape, but we also are going to look at what they did in weeks 4, 5, 6, and 7. So it's going to be a combination of things, and our offense is evolving. So I think we're a little bit different team than we are in Week 3. But yeah, that's what Sundays are for in the fall. Putting your game plan together and meeting as a staff and figuring out what would give us the best chance to win.
Talking with Coach Eric Rupp from Lancaster and Paul Bergio from Clarence. This is a game you might have thought you'd seen at New Era Field, but because that AA is just so competitive, so strong, these 2 heavyweights are going to go at it this Friday night, 7 p.m. in Clarence, 7 p.m. kickoff, a game you will be able to hear on Mixler.com/WNY Athletics. Best of luck to you coaches on Friday night.
Thank you so much.
Speaking of Orchard Park and Hutch Tech, I also had a chance to talk with Coach Craig Dana from the Quakers. Here's a little bit of what he had to say following the Jamestown loss and heading into the game with Hutch Tech. Your second year with the program. What's been different about this year and last year?
It started really in January. The group of seniors, they really were dedicated to improving from what we did last year. We had a really good season last year, losing the playoffs to a really good Bennett team. So our seniors were dedicated starting in January. So they've worked real hard in off season, all summer long, all season long. So the senior group has really dedicated themselves and been good leaders for our team.
You guys are going to draw Hutch Tech in your Week 1. It's Friday night against Hutch Tech in Orchard Park. And then you're going to get either Bennett or Niagara Falls. You've already seen Bennett once this year. People are going to say that's going to be the matchup in Week 2, but I'm sure you're going to remind your guys that anything can happen on any given day here in Section 6, Class AA.
Yeah, well, we played Hutch Tech last year, and they played us really tough. And then we played them just not too long ago, and they played us tough. They came to play. So I think coming off of our game Friday night, our guys should be hungry to get to practice. And knowing that Hutch Tech is an athletic team, they played us really well last time they came to Orchard Park. So we got to get through that first, and then Niagara Falls and Bennett just played. We've seen Bennett a couple weeks ago too, and I've seen the Falls play on film. I saw Falls play live last week at Jamestown, or when they hosted Jamestown. And Falls is a talented team. They were 4-1 going into the last couple weeks of the season. So playoff time. We got to handle Hutch Tech, and then we'll got to prepare for whoever comes out of that Bennett Falls game.
Welcome back to High School Football Weekly. One more game to go here in the Class AA, Dick. It's going to be Bennett hosting Niagara Falls. It's 4 p.m. at All High Stadium. They just played last week. Bennett did a really good job as a team. They came together. This is where Bennett kicks it up a notch. And I don't know if they just play with us all year long or what, but this is when they really come alive, and this is when they're the most dangerous.
I think that if you look at Bennett when they started the season, there's a big difference now. And the big difference is Justin Campbell, who excelled on both sides of the ball last year, did not play the first few games. I don't know what the status was, whether it was health issues, but when you look at him play last week against Niagara Falls, he was outstanding on both sides of the ball. When you take two of the best running backs, I think, not just in Western New York and the state, so physical, so quick, so talented, and Jay Perry and then Justin, Bennett's going to be a force in the playoffs, and whoever's going to play them is going to have to play their best game.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret Justin's one of the best two-way players in Western New York, if not Section 6 and maybe the state, who knows. Definitely one of the top players when he's in the lineup. So Bennett's a very dangerous team right now. I personally don't like the draw with Orchard Park. I know Orchard Park beat them earlier in the year 28-0. I'd be looking to see a round 2 matchup. I don't know if Hutch Tech's going to be able to beat Orchard Park. I doubt it. So I'm going to count Orchard Park heading into week 2 of the playoffs, and I don't know about Niagara Falls. I just think Bennett is just too big, too strong, too fast right now for the
I think of the 4 games, one of them is going to be close with Clarence and Lancaster. The other 3 are going to be dominated, I think, by Orchard Park, Jamestown, and Bennett.
So we're going to get back into Class A in just a moment. You're watching High School Football Weekly. We'll be back in a minute.
We didn't get here by accident. It starts with a plan to protect your future, to invest in your future. It started with Scroy Financial. Plan, protect, invest. Scroy Financial.
We needed a plan to protect what matters most. By investing in our future, that all started with Scroy Financial. Plan, protect, invest. Scroy Financial.
Welcome back to High School Football Weekly. We're going to get into the Class A bracket of the playoffs right now. And Class A is brought to you by Cipriano Realtors. Our good friend Ann Quitchoff at CiprianoRealtors.com. Give her a call. Put your house up for sale. Ann Quitchoff's the one you're going to want to call. So getting into the Class A, McKinley and South Park, respective number ones. McKinley, the number 1 seed overall, but McKinley taking A1, South Park taking A2. And McKinley's going to draw Sweet Home, where South Park draws Will North. And Star Point is going to be going out, or they're going to host West Seneca West Friday at 7. And then Kenmore West is hosting Grand Island Saturday at 2 p.m. And Dick, if you were to ask where's the most competitive games out of all 5 brackets, I think this might be the one. It could be. McKinley, Sweet Home, you've got some very, very quick, fast athletes. I know McKinley's dominated their teams that they've played this year. But Sweet Home, that Terrell Laws and
Jamal
Lucas.
Jamal Lucas, to me, is one of the best players in the area, if not the state. His stats are off the chart. He was injured 1 game, so his stats are 6 games instead of 7. And I think that Sweet Home, if they avoid the turnovers and penalties, they'll give the Max a game and could possibly pull off an upset just based on the athleticism of Jamal.
I agree with you there. I do. And I think if they can keep the McKinley Max offense off the field, that Sweet Home has a chance to at least give them a game. I think it's going to be closer than people think. I had a nice conversation with Coach Davis of McKinley on Sunday, and he expected this. He expected McKinley to be as good as they are right now. He's got a lot of confidence, not just in him. His players have a lot of confidence, and he's holding them accountable to players. He's done that all year. He instilled in a strength and conditioning program, the weight room, and he said they've had close to 90% participation since the winter. So he's doing things right at McKinley, and it's good to see. He's doing a great job there, and he needs to be commended for the work he's done. South Park taking on Will North. That's at All High at 7 p.m. Will North, obviously, a bit of a down year for them. They're down in A now. But they're on a bit of a winning streak. I believe they've won 2 games in a row. So they're heading into the playoffs on a positive note. They still have Hopkins, that lineman, who could change some games. And if he's going to be spying that quarterback, he can run him down. He's got speed and he's got strength. South Park at the skill position, probably just a little bit too much for the Spartans, but we'll have to see. They've got players too.
I think that South Park, they have averaged 48 points a game, and they've just dominated. Last week against Williamsville South, I saw that game, and surprised at halftime South was winning 7-6, and the Sparks scored 28 points to, win that. And you have to give credit to South for staying with them, at least for the half. I don't see anyone being able to take the Sparks in the quarterfinals. I think in the semis, in the finals, it's different. But Winslow North, I think, does not match up well. I think Sparks just have too much speed, and the quarterback's outstanding. He's got outstanding stats, but the one player that just dominates on both sides of the ball is Fluid, and I think it's Mike Juan Fluid. He's got 15 sacks. He's got 84 tackles, and he's a stud. So I would expect that South Parks could advance.
Keith Jackson, too.
Keith Jackson, yep.
Yeah.
And they have 6 or 7 kids who are just outstanding both sides.
And I think South Park and McKinley have been the class of A all year in terms of talent, speed. That's the game people want to see. We'll have to see if they can get there. Obviously, both teams have a lot of work in front of them before they get to that point. We can speculate and talk and have fun discussing it, but those schools are just concentrating on the game in front of them. I'm sure Tim Delaney and Coach Davis have their players worried about that game in front of them because that's why they play them. Anybody can beat anyone on any given Sunday. That's the mantra of football. Kenmore West, Grand Island on Saturday. Now the Blue Devils are coming off a monumental loss to the Bulldogs. Grand Island just won a big game on Saturday to ensure themselves this playoff spot. So Dean Santorio's got something going right now, and I got to believe that, maybe they pull off an upset here. It wouldn't surprise me. I don't think it would surprise you too much if the Vikings can get one over here at Kenmore West.
I had the pleasure of watching Dean when he played. He was outstanding, made all Western New York, did very well in college. His coaching staff's been together for 20 years, and he's won over 100 games. They come to play, they practice hard, and I think teams in A2 were stronger than the teams in A1 this year. Wouldn't surprise me if the Vikings upset Ken West.
Star Point, West Seneca West, that's a Friday night 7 p.m. game. It wouldn't shock me if West Seneca West continues their success that they've had in the playoffs the last few years. Star Point, it's really sucks. Al Cavanaro's sitting there at 99 wins. Probably his last game. He's already said he's going to retire at the end of the year. No Joe Carlson. It doesn't look like he'll be playing. He's had an all-star year. But that game against Lockport last week, unfortunately for Joe, it looks like he might not make it. West Seneca West is good. They're very good.
Well, I think that if you look at it, they've only given up 71 points. Their strength the last couple of years, besides having Matt Myers a couple of years ago, has been their defense. And you look at Mike Linsky, he's already been all Western New York twice at linebacker position. You have Liam Schuer, the quarterback now, who also excels as a defensive lineman. And then if you look at Dylan Weir, who's got double-digit tackles in every game, I just think that the Indians are going to be able to handle the Spartans in that game, even though they're playing at Star Point.
West Seneca East travels to Hamburg on Thursday, 7:30. Niagara Wheatfield heads to Will South on Thursday as well as part of the Chuck Funky Memorial Classic. Those games are on Thursday. We'll be back with the Class B in just a few moments.
We didn't get here by accident. It starts with a a plan to protect your future, to invest in your future. It started with Scroy Financial. Plan, protect, invest. Scroy Financial.
We needed a plan to protect what matters most. By investing in our future, that all started with Scroy Financial. Plan, protect, invest. Scroy Financial.
Welcome back to High School Football Weekly. Frank Wolf joined by Dick Gallagher. We're going to roll into the Class B matchups of the Section 6 playoffs here. Class B today is brought to you by the Sam Watts Academy. Sam Watts Kicking. There's a lot of teams in Class B that can use Sam Watts' help right now.
Most of the 71 schools in Western New York could use Sam Watts, because I've never seen it this bad that you have every week only 4 or 5 field goals, and the weather's been pretty decent. And then if you look at the kicking game, kickoffs, you look at just the overall kicking game, it's one of the 3 components. And if I was coaching football now, I'd be down and looking at soccer players when they were in elementary school, and then watching them and hopefully being able to get them to come, because Randolph had a kicker, I'm blocking on his name, but he was one of the reasons why they won a couple of state championships in a row.
Zach Fisher from Maple Grove. Didn't he make a pretty big extra point against Bennett at the stadium?
Big time.
Yeah. And it's not just the extra points, and it's not just the field goals. It's the punting. It's the kickoffs. It's the snap, putting the ball down. There's so much that goes into it. I cannot tell you how many games I'm at this year alone where the snap from the center to the holder to the punter was just so off target, and it just kills you on your punts. And, you know, you want to give yourself a chance to, if you have to punt, to at least kick that ball 35, 40 yards downfield. Get it down there. I just saw a 10-yard punt at Burgard the other day.
Well, if you look at it, the one coach isn't worried about the kicking game unless he has a tremendous kicker, is Craig Krasansky. And his bottom line is, we don't kick. And there was a national, in North Carolina, there was a coach that won a state championship. He didn't punt once the whole season, even playing the talent that he played. And he just said, I don't never want to give up the ball. So if you've got a first down and you've got a few yards to go, and you're in your own end zone, you need a few yards for a first down. If you don't kick it, you're asking for trouble, but it is what it is. I just think that it's a part of the game that needs to really be enhanced if you're going to win more state championships. We won 24 state championships, and you could count the number of teams, probably 80%, that had outstanding kickers during that time.
Before we get into the brackets, the Chunk Funky games will be played on Wednesday. Burgard at Dunkirk and Newport at Depew. That's Thursday, 7 p.m. Now, Western New York Maritime Health Sciences, they want to be known as the Falcons. I talked to Coach Ty Parker on Sunday. Here's a little bit of what Ty had to say about that team, the combined team, how they just want to be known as the Falcons. Second-year program. You guys made the playoffs this year. Not only did you make them, but you pretty much crushed the competition that was in your way. 6-1 season. The only loss to the Monsignor Martin Canisius Crusaders. Nothing to hang your head about there, but still, you guys seem to get better each and every week with the last game, especially against Burgard. Just talk about the way the season's gone and how quickly these guys bought in to your program and your message.
The season is went great. We didn't expect to be where we at right now, and we're very thankful with the blessings. But the guys put in the work, you know, like I was telling Miguel, proper preparation prevents poor performance. And that's what I always tell our guys. If we prepare and we take care of business and approach the game very detailed in a detailed fashion, that good things will happen. You know, last year we had a young crew. A lot of the guys was freshmen and sophomores last year, so this year they matured a lot, you know, and give credit to the guys of off-season workouts and how hard they've worked to be better players, you know, and they just trusted the process. The challenge for us was to getting the kids to buy in collectively. You know, when you partner with two different schools, and I didn't have the opportunity to talk to other schools that's combined, but we knew that it was going to be different personalities, different characters, you know. So we just had to get them to buy in, and ain't no maritime versus health sciences. You know, we all one. And that's why I don't use the term maritime health sciences. I use Falcons because we just one team. You know, when you put maritime health sciences, it ain't division, but it sounds like a division. And then with the kids, you know, you got some kids that say, well, we were maritime, we health sciences. That's why I just say we're the Falcons, you know, and they bought into that.
Welcome back to WNY Athletics High School Football Weekly. We're talking about the Class B playoff matchups. Maritime Charter Health Science, the Falcons are taking on Iroquois for the second time this year. That game is going to be played Friday night at Johnny B. Wiley. So with that game, that's the second time those teams matched up. First time Maritime by a couple of touchdowns.
They dominated.
Yeah. I don't know if they'll have that much of a cushion this time around. Iroquois been playing much better. They're getting healthier, getting stronger, getting more comfortable, building up confidence. Maritime, though, has a running game. They've got 3 or 4 guys that can run the ball. And it's going to be a tough outing for Iroquois. I think offensively, if they can keep Maritime's offense off the field and run the ball. They've been running the ball pretty effectively this year.
But you get Blake Nolan running, and then you get Drake Lights, the quarterback. One's a sophomore, I think the other's the junior. And they can be competitive, but it's just when you take a look at that offense for the Falcons, it's just outstanding. They have so much talent, speed, but that's why they play the game.
No question about it. We're going to have another rematch. Cheektowaga taking on Pioneer. Battle of B1s right there. I saw that game earlier in the year. Cheektowaga Pioneer. A lot of penalties in that game. Some turnovers. I think that can go either way. I like Cheektowaga in the game. I do. But that could go either way depending on weather. Is weather a factor? Is that a ground and pound game? That might favor Pioneer. They've got more guys that can run the ball. They got a couple of really nice running backs there. We'll have to wait and see. Cheektowaga, I think overall their offense is much better than Pioneer's, but Pioneer is still going to hit you really hard. I think they are the more physical of the two teams. So that's a toss-up for me. It really is. I think Cheektowaga pulls it out, but that's a toss-up for me.
Well, I think when you take a look at Denton Tilley, 6'5", 250, anchors the line, and you take Logan Ellis, a sophomore, take Jordan King, who's a linebacker, only a junior. He's got double-digit tackles in every game. And so to me, the difference could be in the quarterback play for Cheektowaga. But I just think this game's a toss-up, and whoever comes out of that is going to be – they're going to know that they've been in a smash-mouth football game.
Albion hosts Tonawanda Friday night at 7 p.m. The Warriors are back in the playoffs. Here's a quick recap of my conversation with Joe Kelly from the Tonawanda Warriors. Congratulations on the success this year, but obviously next week the real games start.
Yeah, that's my kids have been talking about it the last couple weeks. We kind of stayed away from the NT talk all year, and now that it's over, I think we have a lot of motivation going into the game. We're on top of the wave, and hopefully we stay on there. They're pretty darn focused. I mean, even after the big win against NT, I think they were on to Albion or Newfane. But after our game, we didn't know who we were playing. So obviously it's on to Albion, and hopefully we could put up a good fight against them. They're a very good team. They're very athletic, and hopefully we can match up well against them.
You guys have been riding that Jason Frazier train, and I think almost anybody would. He's an exceptional athlete, two-way player, but your defense really all season has been carrying you guys. Yeah. But it was nice to see the offense start picking things up.
Well, yeah, I think as a play caller, I'm getting more comfortable, and it's not we game plan our offensive game plan as well as the defensive game plan, and we're executing a little better. We could have executed better last Friday, but we scored 23 points. It could have been a lot more, but it's just execution and putting a helmet on a guy and staying on a guy, and I think we're doing that better. I think they're understanding everything better.
Joe, you're one of 4 Kenmore West graduates that are coaching teams in Section 6. All 4 made the playoffs this year. But the Blue Devils lost to Kenmore East yesterday. You were part of that rivalry for quite a long time on a number of Blue Devil teams that took care of business. What's it like being in this other rivalry, North Tonawanda, and finally getting that big win over the Lumberjacks? Any comparison in the rivalries, number one?
The comparison is it's a great rivalry. The kids really get into it, but the TNT rivalry is different. I mean, the town of Tonawanda, the city of Tonawanda, is so much smaller than both Kenmore East and Kenmore West areas. That there's that canal in between there, so it puts a little bit more emphasis on the game, especially when North Tonawanda is so much bigger. And it becomes more of a community thing in the city of Tonawanda, I think. Kenmore West, Kenmore East, there's not a lot of different outsiders that come back to it. You might see a handful, of graduates that are there without their kids there. But the city of Tonawanda, I mean, half the town showed up on Friday night. I think they felt it. I think they felt our momentum. I believe they have some confidence in me, and I think they had the feeling that we were going to finally win one in 18 years. So
what this really means is Joe is not going to have to buy a frosty beverage in the city of Tonawanda for quite some time.
I hope not.
But Joe and his Tonawanda Warriors got a huge win after 18 years. They break the streak. And congratulations, Coach, on that again, and best of luck in the playoffs.
Thanks, Frank. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And anybody out there who wants to see some good football, come out to Albion, 7 o'clock Friday, and hopefully we can provide a good game for Albion, and everybody stay healthy, and we'll see you there.
Welcome back to High School Football Weekly. We're talking about the Albion-Tonawanda game. Albion, the Purple Eagle Eaters? What do they call them?
Purple Eagles.
Okay. Purple Eagle Eaters. I think I heard that last time I was up there watching the game. They take on Tonawanda, a very hungry, feisty bunch. We're going to have to see how that one plays out. That's going to be smash mouth football. That's going to be which defense is going to bend the most. And Tonawanda's defense really hasn't bent that much this year. In fact, they're the reason why they're in the playoffs.
I think Jason Fraser is a strong candidate for all Western New York honors on both sides of the ball. And then if you take a look at just the momentum that they have with their win to be able to participate in the playoffs, but also the way that they did it in shutting out the Lumberjacks, Joe is going to have those kids ready to play.
I could see Tonawanda taking that one.
Yeah, I can too.
Newfane Olean. You can't get much further south. You can't get much further north.
2-hour trip for Olean.
Yeah, it's a Saturday 2 p.m. game. And Newfane, they've got a couple of nice pieces there, especially with Jaden Heers. We've talked about him a couple of times on this program. They've got a nice quarterback there that can run the ball. He's a 2A guy. What do you look for out of Olean?
Well, with Olean, they got Nick Fraternangelo, who's been a 3-year starter.
Can you say that name again? I butchered it all week long.
Pardon?
Can you say that kid's name again? Because I keep butchering it.
Nick Fraternangelo.
Okay.
And he's been a stud for the Huskies for 3 years. Outstanding, particularly defensively.
I think they brought him up as a freshman.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing is when you have a team that has two runners, which basically Stroke and Heers is, and then Heers, outstanding defensive player, the linebacker. To me, you have to give the edge to Newfane. They're ranked their number 2 seed versus the number 7, but that game could also be a toss-up.
I had a chance to talk to Coach Phil Vecchio on Sunday morning. Here's a little bit of that interview. Coach Vecchio, an exciting season for the Huskies. Went into Week 7 needing a win, and maybe not necessarily needing a win, but definitely a win helped your case get into the playoffs, and that's exactly what the Huskies did on Friday night against Lackawanna. Just talk about the roller coaster of emotions for the last 72 hours or so.
Yeah, we knew we needed to win the game. We wanted to win the game, obviously, to make sure there was no doubt for us to go into the playoffs. We scrapped. It wasn't easy, but we were able to come out on top. So we're looking forward to going to Newfane on Saturday and see if we can compete up there with them.
Just talk about that 4-year senior.
Yep.
What he means to the Huskies, and who else should we be looking for on Saturday against Newfane?
Yep. So brought Nick up like 3 games into his freshman season, which, I mean, it's been a long time since we had a freshman play varsity, but he's that good of a linebacker. He's an aggressive kid. He's really a student of the game. He's worked his tail off in the weight room for 4 years. He's kind of the heart and soul of our team. We have a good tailback, Nick Pantuso. Our quarterback is young. He's a sophomore, but he really slings it around pretty well. And we have a real good receiver in Gavin Culp, number 3. And our right tackle, I should mention, A.J. Adada is our key lineman for us.
Welcome back to WNY Athletics High School Football Weekly. That pretty much wraps up our Class B playoff scenario. A lot of tough games coming up. We're going to talk about the Class C's in just a moment after a word from our sponsors.
Why do you exercise? To look better? To feel better? To drop a few pounds? To train for an event? To defy age? Or to keep your ability to say yes to the things you love to do? Whatever motivates you, G&G Fitness Equipment is here to get you there. Treadmills, ellipticals, rowers, bikes, home gyms, and accessories. We'll pair you with the right equipment, teach you how to use it, and be there every step of your fitness journey. G&G Fitness. Your goal is our goal.
Welcome back to High School Football Weekly. The Class C Playoff Edition is brought to you by Al Ross, screen printing and embroidery. Visit alross.com for your jackets, your shirts, sweatshirts, and all your other embroidery needs. Talking about the Class C playoffs, it's tough to not think Southwestern is going to skate all the way to New Era Field. But again, like we've said so many times on the show already, that's why they play the games. Southwestern draws the 1 seed. They've got Silver Creek Forestville coming up Friday night, 7 p.m. And that's a game Southwestern should win. They've been playing so good. We'll have to see what I believe it's Coach Helmer down there at Silver Creek. The Black Knights. See how he can get his troops rallied, and maybe they steal a game. Maybe they shock the world. That would be the upset of upsets, though, on this weekend. Would you agree?
I agree that it would be the biggest upset of the weekend. I don't think it's going to happen when you take a look at Aiden Kennedy, the quarterback, Cooper Pennis, and then you take the 2 transfers from Dunkirk, Taiwan Wright, and Conrad Thomas, who's 6'4", 250. And what they've done, they've only given up, I think, 22 points all season. They've dominated, even though they changed coaches with Jehu leaving, to go to Michigan. I still think that they're the class in Class C, and I wouldn't be surprised if they wound up winning the sectional championship and was able to compete for a state.
I had a chance to talk to Jake Burkholder on Sunday as well at the seating meeting. Here's a little bit of that interview. Not too many head coaches start off with a 1-0 record, without having to play a game, but you did that, and now you're going to have to get ready for Silver Creek and Forestville. Just talk about any challenges that they may pose for your team, and how is your team physically at this moment?
Yep, they're a solid team. They've got a good running game, so we're going to have to prepare for that, definitely. The bye week helped us with getting people back that were a little banged up, too. So we're looking good heading into this week, for sure.
Talk about some of the better players on your team. Obviously, Taiwan Wright's playing very well for you guys. You're getting good quarterback play out of Aiden Kennedy. Defensively on that side of the ball, how do you look?
Yeah, really well. We've got Cooper Panis has done a great job for us this year, really controlling that edge. Conrad Thomas as well on the other side. So it's tough for people to match up with both those guys and handle both of them. So we can keep that moving forward and just playing sound football. We'll be fine.
Welcome back to High School Football Weekly. JFK and Chautauqua Lake, Westfield, Brockton, they go at it Saturday at 1:30. That could go either way. I'm not sold on JFK just yet. Chautauqua Lake's playing some really good football at the right time of the year. So we'll have to see if the Thunderwolves, or what are they called? The Chautauqua Lake down there.
Chautauqua Lake?
Thunderbirds? I think they're the Thunderbirds. We'll have to see. I could see that going their way. They're coming up to JFK, though, Saturday, 1:30. The other 1 seed from C North is Wilson. We talked to Bill Atlas. Here's a little bit of that interview before we start talking about that game. Let's hear from Bill Atlas. Back at Hamburg High School, we're at the Section 6 football seeding meeting, and I'm here with Class C North coach Bill Atlas, the undefeated Wilson Lakeman, 7-0. It's been a long season, but we're here. It's playoff time, and you guys got to get ready for your first matchup. Allegheny Limestone. Talk about that matchup.
We had to face them a few years ago, and that's always one of the toughest rides. We're one of the northernmost teams against one of the southernmost teams, so I know it's a long ride for them, and sometimes that takes its toll. But we're ready. We had a great season. We're rolling, and hopefully we're going to be peaking at the right time.
Is there anything you know about Allegheny Limestone heading into this game, or all you have is film?
I haven't even gotten the film yet, so we're going to be exchanging later tonight through Huddle, and I'll start taking a look at it tonight. Don't know much about them, but we'll be prepared.
Brandon Dunlap, Drew Westmoreland, Declan Ferry, your son Bobby Atlas, who sat behind Steve Frericks for a couple of seasons. How is your team physically right now and emotionally prepared for the playoff run?
We're good. We're ready to go. We had a really tough one Friday night with Ravel Newfane, and it was a non-league game, but it was overtime game, one of the best games in the section on Friday night. And but we got out healthy. We ended up winning in overtime, and I think that's going to be a good thing for us going forward for next week.
Obviously, Coach, you don't want to look at it this way, but we get to look at these things this way. You've never really had a clear path to the stadium. You've always had to go through Southwestern to get here. They're not in your way this year. They're obviously 7-0 as well, playing at a very high level. Does that even creep into your mind at all that, you know what, we have a legit shot this year of reaching New Era Field, or is it just Allegheny Limestone all week long?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't thinking about it, but like you said, we've got very important games coming up, hopefully, this Friday, and if we're lucky enough, the Friday after that. So it's in the distant memory. It's a little bit of a thought process, but that won't go into anything that we do this week.
All right, thank you very much, Coach.
Thank you.
Have a good week.
Thanks.
Welcome back to High School Football Weekly. So Wilson, 7 p.m. against Allegheny Limestone. They got a nice ride this Friday. In fact, they might have started already.
I think the Lakemen, when you take a look at it, are outstanding team. They're undefeated, and they'll be able to handle the Gators. I think that
who's playing? They've played pretty good football this year.
Right, but I think when you take a look at Wilson, they were close the last couple of years, even with an outstanding quarterback. And if you take a look at the players that they have, senior-dominated team, and particularly with Declan Ferry, who's a big kid. His father was an outstanding high school player. He made all Western New York, did very well in college. And then I'm blocking a couple of
Braden Dunlap,
Westmoreland,
and Drew Westmoreland,
and
who I think is the difference. Drew Westmoreland is the difference.
He'd be the difference, but I got to go with the Lakemen on this.
I would agree. Portville, led by Coach Josh Brooks for his second straight year. I finally got that right. I've been calling that guy Jason Marsh all year. I've been screwing both those guys' names up, so I apologize to both Jason and Josh. But we did get a chance to talk to Josh, and I even apologize for calling him Jason all year long. But here's what Josh Brooks had to say about his team's chances in the playoffs. I'm here with Jason Marsh from... Just kidding. Josh Brooks from the Portville Panthers. Josh, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Welcome to the playoffs.
Yeah, it feels good to be here.
I've been calling this guy the wrong name all year, and putting you on a different team, by the way.
That's all right.
But we're here. Josh Brooks and the Portville Panthers, you guys come in, and you're going to be battling Akron Friday at 7 p.m. It is a home game for you.
Yeah.
And Akron, obviously, they've had a couple players get injured in the year. They started out really well, and one thing happened. Football happens sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Portville's been pretty strong all year. Just talk about your season overall and where you see your team right now.
Yeah, well, we set some goals in the preseason. And our goal was to get to a sectional playoff game and a home playoff game. We accomplished that. Small goal, but we're trying to rebuild this thing, and we're very happy with our kids' effort so far. Had a bye week this week with going to forfeiting, so it kind of gave us a chance to get healthy and take a look at Akron. We actually had a chance to go scout on a Friday night. It was pretty cool. Akron has some good young players, so we got to be ready, but I think we will be.
Welcome back to High School Football Weekly. One more game in Class C to talk about. That's Portville and Akron. Akron got off to a really good start, ran into that injury bug. Portville's playing really good. Is it Lattimore, the running back there, or Lassiter?
Jaden Lassiter.
I'm messing that poor kid's name up too.
No, he's an outstanding player,
yes.
And he's dominated offensively and defensively. So he's the leader. And just to go back to JFK, I like Jax Lighton. He's lit it up for the Bears the whole season. I wouldn't be surprised if he lights it up this weekend. And then if you look at Portville, they've had a rough few years, and then last year they had 50 kids on the roster. This year I think they have 42. So they're not lacking for depth, and Josh and the coaching staff have done an excellent job. And with Akron, they've only given up. They've given up very few touchdowns, but that game to me could be a toss-up.
All right, well, that'll do it for Class C. We'll be back in just a few moments with Class D.
We have hundreds of square feet of physical therapy in multiple locations. And with the physical therapy, we also have a strength and conditioning bridge program that can help athletes kind of specifically fine-tune their abilities in getting them back to specific sports. For people who are in tune to working with athletes of all different levels, from high school all the way up to the professional teams we take care of, this is a service that's offered through the UB Well program.
Back to High School Football Weekly. We're down in Class D right now. There's one game this week. Salamanca's taking on Cat Little Valley. The winner of that game draws Franklinville-Ellicottville, the number 1 seed. And Jason Marsh and Franklinville-Ellicottville, the Titans, they are reborn. They are really having a good season. Put where they're supposed to. In Class C, this year, Class C, they would have been doing just fine, but they are down in D. Last year, they didn't do so well up there, but down in D right now, they've been dominating all year. They're undefeated. They beat the Wolfpack, the first team to do that in the last 2 seasons. They'll play Friday night in Week 9, that's November 1st. And then CSP, they've got the 2 seed. They're taking on Randolph. They will play not this Saturday, the following Saturday at 1:30 down at Panama is where that game is. I had a chance to talk to head coach Ty Parker. Here's a little bit of that interview.
You know, our goals are the same, regardless of where we finish in the regular season. Like you said, we're entering as a 2 seed right now, but that doesn't change how we're going to prepare. Won't change how we practice. We've got a bye coming up this week, so we're going to use that time to do some extra preparation. We've got Randolph coming back, who we just played yesterday, so we'll see them again in 2 weeks, and that's always tough when you have to play a team back to back. And I'm sure they'll be ready to play in 2 weeks. So we'll take this week, get healthy, and hopefully get ready for them, and we'll go from there.
I was going to ask you about that week off. It's got to work to your advantage and kind of heal up a little bit and game plan. Now you got 2 full weeks to look at the tape from Randolph. Is that a big advantage, or do you guys want to get back on the field this Friday?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think as a competitor, you always want to have a game. So I think there's positive and negatives to this. We do have a couple guys that are banged up and probably could use the rest. At the same time, you don't really want to get out of your routine or change your schedule. So it'll be a little bit different, not having that game at the end of the week. But we'll get in the weight room, we'll watch some tape, get some things sharpened up for the postseason. There's certainly things that we can be better at. Yesterday we didn't run the ball as well as we would have liked to, and when the weather gets bad, that's something we're going to have to focus on. So there's definitely things that we can improve on going into the playoffs, so we need to use every day and just keep getting better.
Welcome back to High School Football Weekly. Why don't we start with that CSP Randolph game? The Cards taking on the Wolfpack. They just played this past week, and it's a coming out show, if you will, for Barmore and Hinsdale. Finally, they opened up that offense, and
Wolfpack dominated. I think it was 40-0. And when you look at, they're playing a week later, they should dominate again. Particularly when you look at Garrett Hinsdale and Cam Barmore, and Garrett's been lights out all his career. Cam Barmore, they've moved him around defensively now, and I think he'll be playing different defense than they played the first game. But right now, the Titans are ranked 2nd in Class D in the state, and the Wolfpack are ranked 3rd. So these 2 teams are well known throughout the state right now, and if they get to the sectional championship, that game is going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that plays out. But CSP wants another shot at them. Franklinville-Ellicottville have been so good at the line of scrimmage, and they have the great running back over there with the Titans. His name again? The running back was that Tyler?
Logan Frank.
Logan Frank, yeah. Having an exceptional year.
Yeah, he's having a good year. And there's another kid, I'm blocking on his name, but he's 6'4", 230, and he's outstanding defensively. And I think that matchup will be fun to watch. And particularly when you take a look at our success in Class D. And Maple Grove lost, I think, the last couple of years in the state championship game. And Maple Grove's now playing in 8-man football. They won 54-6, last weekend. So wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple of other schools that are going to be going to play 8-man football.
Yeah, or they're going to have to merge back and combine teams. But we'll let those ADs and superintendents work it out. But that's going to do it for another episode of High School Football Weekly. Again, today's broadcast brought to you by UBMD Orthopedics, G&G Fitness, the Wester Family of Dealerships, and Scroy Financial. And Dick, I don't know where you're going to be this weekend, but I know it'll be in front of maybe that Spectrum game. Did Spectrum say who they're showing on Friday yet?
They're supposed to, but I don't know what the show is. I know I'm going to be at Clarence and Lancaster.
Okay.
And then on Saturday, I'm playing it by ear, but also I'm inclined to try to get out to St. Francis too. So we'll see.
All right. Well, that'll do it for another episode of High School Football Weekly. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.
WNYathletics.com is the premier high school sports website in Western New York, providing the best sports coverage of Section 6 and Monsignor Martin leagues. Check out our page for daily game recaps and late-breaking sports news. Our online scoreboards are updated in real time. Never miss a goal or touchdown. Visit WNYathletics.com today or follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube.